Okay, so in this video, which is going to be part of your assignment, we're going to go ahead and take basic primitives and we're going to unwrap them individually so you can see how the different features within UVW Unwrap works. So let's go ahead and start with a box. And you are going to go ahead and click S to turn on snaps, and go ahead and turn that 2.5 to 3 so we can snap in 3D place. And then with that turned on, you're going to go ahead and create a box from one side to the other, and then raise it up, create a rectangle, box, doesn't matter. Challenge yourself a little, maybe make it a triangle. So now that we have it, we're going to go ahead and unwrap it ourselves, so we're not going to cheat. So we're going to go ahead and turn off generate mapping coordinates, so this thing does not have any coordinates and you do it yourself. So I've turned off generate mapping coordinates. I'm going to go to my object and I am going to convert to an editable poly. So the first thing that I want to do, I'm going to press M. I'm going to go to my material editor. I'm going to find my material with my UVW grid, and I'm going to go right here to assign material selection and assign it. So as you can see, show shaded material is already on. So that means, since it's a single color, that means that it's probably the whole texture is on a single pixel. So then after that, we're going to have to do all the work ourselves, but this is what we're here for. So after I've done that and applied the material, I will go to UVW Unwrap. And then as you can see now, we have a very basic layout. You have a very basic unwrap, which is basically a planer that's been applied, which is not going to do the trick. So what are we going to do about this? First things first is we're going to turn off the ignore backfacing, which is the standard. So that means that it's going to allow us to select the whole mesh as one. So we select all the polygons, and then we are going to scroll down, open the UV editor, and as you can see, everything is selected. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and take all these and flatten it so we can have them all having equal and well-mapped UVs. So to do that, I'm going to go to mapping, right here at the top, flatten mapping, hit OK. Hope my 3D Studio Mesh doesn't crash. See, is it going to crash? Is it going to crash? Is it going to crash? No, apparently not. There you go. Boom. So what did it do? Now, as you can see, everything's mapped individually. Every single polygon is individual. So now what we're going to do with this is we're going to go and we're going to take all the elements and we're going to stitch them together so they are mapped as one. One of the reasons that sometimes it's important to stitch all the elements together and to have as little seams as possible is because when you create the ambient occlusion map, if you leave too many seams and you do the ambient occlusion map, it's going to leave a lot of little dark lines that are hard to get out in the UV in the textures afterwards. So it's best to try to map everything together if it makes sense. So for the box, this one's a very easy one. So how are we going to do this? We're going to go into edge mode. This is going to be the base one right here that we work with, and we're going to stitch everything here. So we're going to go this edge, and as you can see, this blue one right here lights up. That means that's going to be the corresponding one. So I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Stitch Selected. And as you can see, it's stitched without no distortion, so that's good. And then I'm going to go, again, Tools, Stitch Selected. That's Stitch Selected. Tools, Stitch Selected. Kind of see a pattern. Tools, Stitch Selected. Okay, and then finally, the other side, Tools, and again, Stitch Selected. You got it. So I'm going to go ahead and take this whole mesh now that it's done. Drag, select it all, move it within the UV space, go and scale it, and then as you can see now, that would be the UVs for that. So let's say we're going to take the UVs and do a whole lot of, map it into one whole space. So let's take those polygons right here and put them to the side, because we're going to take several objects, we're going to attach those objects together, and we're going to use those objects to serve as one sort of texture slash model. So after that's done, you need to then go, and it's important for you to collapse the UV unwrap, And when you collapse it, it sort of bakes or burns those UVs onto your mesh. So for example, if you go back and do unwrap again, as you can see, those UVs are in the same place as they were before. So go ahead, take that and collapse. We are going to move it to the side, snap that over there so we're not using it. And the next one that we're going to do is we're going to go in the top view, and we're going to take a sphere, and then we're going to unwrap it, create the sphere. Good. Press M for the material editor. Make sure your material is selected, and then apply this material to it. So this one we're going to do a little bit different, and this one we're going to do using the pelt modifier to give you an idea how the pelt modifier works. So we are going to go and we're going to do unwrap. And then since this already has the seams and it's already mapped for you, it's kind of a little bit of cheating. So let's go ahead and do it a little bit different. So if we go down and we hit quick peel, no, is it the one that I want? That still has a, no, we're not quick peel. It's going to be reset peel. That's what we want. And as you can see now, the whole mesh has no seams or nothing at all. And we're going to go ahead and add those seams ourselves. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go to edge mode, and then we're going to scroll down to the bottom. And then you see seams right here, edit seams, point to point seams. We're going to go ahead and use the point to point seam. So we're going to start from the very top right there. Going to go click it to the bottom. If you right click it, it undoes the function to do point to point. So then if you click off and on again, click it once more, and then all the way from here to, oh, okay. Instead of point to point, let's try the actual edit seams since I accidentally touched it. So right there, edit seams, control, 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 control. So now we have one set of seams, and we want to go ahead and add, just for shits and giggles, one more. So we're going to go again and click seam to seam, go from right here to the bottom, and then switch from this one, seam to seam again, click on the orange one to start, and then click it in the end. So then, since it's going to probably give me some little funky issues whenever I unwrap it, since it's a sphere, and sphere is one of the most pain in the ass objects to wrap in 3D, we're going to go ahead and give it some seams in different areas so the peel works a little bit more efficiently. Do that for the top, a little bit right there too, tiny bit right there. Control, control, control to add to it. Flip it at the bottom, do the same there. Control, control, control. Control, 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 and you guessed it, control and control and control. So cool. So now that we have all the seams that we want, and we have an idea how this thing's going to peel, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to polygon mode. You're going to go up here and always make sure that your ignore back facing is off. Select all these, because if you don't select all your polygons and you do the peel, it's going to do the seams for you, and it's going to have to force you to go back and draw all these seams. So make sure you always have ignore back facing on before you do the pelt. So now what we're going to do, to give you an example how the pelt works, we're going to go down to peel right here, and if you click here pelt, it's going to go ahead and simulate this, do the simulation. And when you start pelt, as you can see, all the different places that I painted those seams, that's what's going to become the seam when it's unwrapped. So that's done. And then if we want to make sure to see if it's going to do the UVs a little bit more to accurately, if you hit relax, for example, it starts to relax your UVs, but not too much. And then when you hit commit, as you can see, I missed a section of my, obviously I missed a section by having back facing on, but that's okay. So then if you take the second piece like this, again, you have your built-in seams. You scroll down, you go to pelt, start relax, does the initial relax, the pellet for you, and then start relax. And then it adjusts the seam so it's a little bit more accurate. And then when you hit commit, 1 and 2, now you have the sphere unwrapped, which is useful. So let's go ahead and take this, lower it to this space right here, collapse 2, for example. Put that off to the side, Duke. And then let's go ahead and do a different shape. Let's see, what could be fun to make? What could be fun to make? Cone, a tube. Let's go ahead and do a cylinder. Keep the height segment this time just to give you a little bit of a challenge. Editable poly. Get an M for your material. Apply your material. And then when you apply it to material, you're going to go to scroll down to expand your menu. And then we're going to go to polygon, and we're going to go do this one using the cylindrical method. So we're going to select all of it. Make sure everything's selected. Good, good, good. And then we're going to go scroll down. Oh, nope. We have to, first we have to add the unwrap modifier to it. So we'll go ahead and do that first. Unwrap. As you can see, my previous selection is now translating to the unwrap, which is nice. And then under the projection, I'm going to go right here. Cylindrical map. As you can see, the gizmo is not perfect. So you're going to hit fit. And you see how there's distortions right here when I add the cylinder to the map. That means that it's not being mapped 100% perfectly. So while you still have that projection on with the cylinder and you still have that gizmo, if you hit scale and just go on the y-axis, for example, you can scale it up. And that's going to fix those UVs for you. So if you go to over here, as you can see, you have your UVs lined up, but it sadly did not do the top one. So what are we going to do about those? So let's go ahead and take these UVs. You're going to go and turn off projection so you can move them in the space, separate it to the side, and then you're going to go ahead and select all the polygons, edit, and now when it comes to the selection, you have to go to the top edit menu to invert it. So you're going to go edit, select invert. You're going to have just those two right there. So how are you going to map those? Again, through projection, you're going to use planar map. As you can see, it did one planar map for the top and the bottom, so the UVs are perfectly mapped. You turn projection map off, separate it here, and then you're going to have to stitch these caps to those. So how are you going to do that? You're going to select these two, and I'll show you the problem that happens when you stitch something that's too big to something that's not supposed to work. Let's say we go to edge, we select the place that we're going to stitch it to, tools, stitch selected, and then as you can see, it scaled the size of it. However, it distorted the connection point a little bit too much. So what do you do when it comes to that? You take it and then you take it and rotate and lower the bias until the distortion goes away. And then as you can see now, the cap to this is perfectly stitched to one point of the mesh. You hit OK. And then if you want to do the same for the other one, you click on the corresponding edge at the bottom, you hit tools, and then you stitch select it. And as you can see what happened here, the fact that the mesh got stitched into the inside, that means that the UVs are flipped. So we have to flip them again so it stitches correctly. So we're going to hit cancel on that. We're going to hit this polygon, for example. See where the connection point is there. So if we then take the whole thing and then you flip vertically, and then again we go back to the point where we want to stitch it to, go to edge, tools, stitch selected. As you can see now, it's been stitched to the proper orientation. And then you hit OK, and now it works. Now you have all the UVs for this, perfectly done. And as you can see, the size is more or less the same all around. So then what's going to be the next step? And the next step is going to take all these elements and we're going to fit them together. So how do we do that? You have two ways of doing that. Collapse it, and the first way is you go on your poly menu, you scroll down, you find attach, 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 and then it's one item, and then when it's one item, you can go ahead and do unwrap UVW. And you have all the elements here. You take your first one, which is going to be your cylinder, and we're going to fit that along with the rectangle. So we're going to make sure they more or less have the same space in the UVs, which, if I'm not mistaken, they seem to have the, let's see, how big are those? It's more or less the same size, so those are good. And then you take these right here, bunch them together. How do those look? Those are probably a little bit bigger than they should be, so you go right here to the scale, non-uniform scale, scale these together, so you start to scale it a little bit more so the boxes line up in all of them as best as you can eye it. And then you are going to put these elements together. And then you're going to take this element. I'm going to put it up here. So then after you got all this, you have the whole thing, everything selected. You're going to go to non-uniform scale right here, this one. Scale it down. Scale it to fit. If you can see right here, I click by element that lets you pick these individually, so that's a good way to move all these and orientate it how you want. So I'm going to be aiming to take and squeeze these right here towards the corner, because usually if you squeeze everything towards one corner, then you can do the non-uniform scale. Okay, here we go. And I choose that. You hold shift if you want to move it along a straight axis, like as you can see. And then once you got it to the center, then everything's within your UVW space. Of course, these are simple shapes, so there's only so much that you can scale these together to fit in. And then when you hit collapse, then that means that they're one UV space for the whole thing, sharing one texture. So I mentioned a second method to be able to get these things to have them go together. So let's go ahead and do detached, okay, its own object, detach, it's its own object. So now each one of them, they're each individual objects. You could apply modifiers to multiple objects as well and work on them as one UV unwrap. However, when you're done, you have to collapse it so those are selected to it. So as you can see now, I have 3 items selected, but you can still go on the modifier, drop down, and pick unwrap. And then when you go to there, as you can see, they all fit in. So that concludes the video tutorial for this assignment. And your assignment is to pick 3 basic shapes, unwrap them each using these methods, and then put them into one UVW space. That's the end of this video.